Hey everyone, welcome to the Member Lounge podcast. In this podcast, you'll learn how to grow your association membership. I'm your host Farhad Khan. I am the CEO of Member Lounge. We build membership websites for professional associations. Our app, Member Lounge, is one of the quickest ways to build an engaging membership website for your membership. With Member Lounge, you can take your member marketing on autopilot so that member engagement just happens without you having to work hard for it. You can see a demo of Member Lounge on our website at memberlounge.app. That is Member Lounge, all one word, .app. This is a live recording of our podcast. If you're joining us live today, welcome. We got so many great questions from the audience already, but if you have any more questions during the episode, please submit them on Zoom chat. And we're also streaming this live on YouTube. If you're joining us on YouTube, please submit your questions by using the YouTube live chat. And if you're on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so we can create more content like this for you. Today, we are excited to have Leona Scott with us, and we will learn how to create compelling content. Leona, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit more about yourself and your work?
Absolutely. Thank you, Farhad, for having me on your podcast. And as a content creator myself, I admire you and your team's commitment to creating long-form content and in-depth conversations like this. And I also want to just thank the audience for recognizing the importance of content and how it can be the most valuable membership growth tool for your association. So I'm a content creator at heart. My background is in magazine journalism, and that's how I got started working for membership-based associations. I edited association magazines, industry magazines for several years. And during that time, I really learned what it takes to create compelling content that's attention-getting content and telling rich member stories. And then I moved into managing marketing and communications teams for many years. And during that time, I really learned the importance of interdepartmental collaborations on supporting membership growth. I like to share the story of one of the trade associations I worked for. I've worked for a variety of professional and trade associations. One of the trade associations I worked for, I was overseeing the marketing and communications team, and all the way across the hallway, on the other side of the building was the membership team. And I could not tell you what they did, and they couldn't tell you what we did. And one year we were tasked with a huge membership growth initiative, and that involved us working together as a team. And we would meet together, and we learned each other's goals. And so I really believe it's very important if you're going to grow your membership and put out compelling content to do it together as a team. So and then I did that for many years. And then 5 years ago, I started my own marketing communications consulting practice, where I specialize in working with membership-based associations to help them to create lead generation content which attracts qualified membership prospects to their association. I also help associations to convert those prospects into members, and also to retain those members for lifetime value. And I do that specifically through membership persona research, as well as the development of content calendars.
Wow, so you actually work across the entire member journey.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so why is creating content so important these days?
So I think creating content is important because content has value. There's a definition of value that I really like to use that drives home the importance of creating content. So it's actually it's from Sarah Sladek, who was previously on your podcast. And in her book, The End of Membership as We Know It, she defines value as making your members' job easier or their life better. And I'd also like to share a definition of content with you as well. This is from the Content Marketing Institute, and content is defined as compelling information that engages or amuses or informs. And so if you combine those two definitions, I think valuable content, if your content can enrich a member's life and make it better or their job easier, then you've succeeded in creating valuable content. And that's why content is so important.
Yeah. So what are some big mistakes people are making nowadays with content?
Yeah, so I know this is one of the big mistakes that I made early in my career as a content creator. And I see other associations, repeating that, is not knowing their members well enough. I think oftentimes, especially if you've worked for a particular organization for a while, you assume you know your audience, you know your members. And our members are changing every day, just like you and I are changing every day. Like yesterday, a problem that I may have tried to solve in my life is going to look very different than a problem that I'm trying to solve today. And our members are the same way. Their lives and their careers are constantly changing. So you can never assume that you know your members. And so that's why I'm a big believer in having regular conversations with your members, whether it's one-on-one through interviews, whether it's through focus groups, whether it's through surveys, or even just I'm also a big believer in just listening to where your members are congregating. For instance, like in your Facebook groups, online communities are an excellent place to listen in on conversations your members are having with one another, and just really figuring out what their problems are. So I think that's definitely one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making, is not knowing their members well enough.
This is so funny. So yesterday I was hosting a workshop with a client with like four
Yeah.
people from an association, and I was telling them that you need to have like ongoing member discovery interviews to learn more about them. And I was trying to we were creating an member engagement action plan for them. And in the action plan, they wouldn't put a discovery interview as one of their tasks. I was like, can I put it there for you, please? Right. So you can have like ongoing interviews with your members, so you'll learn more about them. They were like, you can put it in the action plan. We don't know if we're going to do it. Right. So, and
Yeah.
this is so common, right?
It is. And I think as content creators, sometimes, especially when we're operating on a publishing deadline, or, we're trying to really push out that content on a regular basis and stick to our deadlines, we get caught up sometimes, and we just create content and don't spend enough time really, seeing what's on our members' minds and what problems we can solve for them. And so I think that's very relevant to this discussion.
Yeah, and I guess like taking that time, maybe it's like 5% of your content creation process to listen to your members, maybe even less, like, yeah, 5%, let's say. If you spend this 5% time in really understanding your members, like listening to our members, to their challenges, needs, then I think the remaining 95% of the work that you're putting in creating the content, that will be so much more productive.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a big believer in, trying to work smartly, because I know many of those in your audience, they have small member staffs, and, they don't have a lot of resources and people to create content. So that's why I like to work, smartly. And, one of my favorite ways actually to just gain information about members is, when you've had a webinar, is to download your chat and go through your chat and, see what kinds of responses, you're seeing in the chat, because oftentimes you'll get real jewels of wisdom in your chat. And oftentimes I've gotten, great ideas for content pieces in the chat.
Okay. So Leona, what is your approach to creating content? What would you do?
Sure. So I actually have a 7-part framework that I use to create content. And the first part is really, and actually it's helpful because it's an acronym for content. So I'm just going to walk you through that really quick. So C stands for clarifying your audience. And we've talked about that a little bit already, Farhad, but I think, if your listeners will take away anything, from today's discussion, is I just want them to understand how critical it is to know your audience and to really have regular engaging conversations with them. So the first part is clarify your audience, know who your audience is, know who you're creating that piece of content for. And the second part is the O in content. It stands for organize your content vehicles. And these can be like your blogs, your podcast, your webinars, your annual conference. Having a calendar is very important. And I have a mentor of mine who says, if you don't organize, you agonize later. So I think a content calendar is really helpful as you're developing your content. So the first N in content is to narrate your content with a story, if at all possible. And I know that stories take time to create, but they do make your content so much richer. So if you can grab that member's story, and that's why it's so important to be talking to your members, on a regular basis. So the first T in content stands for tailor your content to a specific either member segment, a professional interest or career field, to specific generations, for example, young professionals, mid-career, senior career professionals. And also what you were referring to earlier, yes, about the member journey. See where they are. Are they just getting started in their membership, or are they longtime members? So tailoring your content is very important. So the E in content stands for establish your value with a solution. And this is something that we talked about last week on the LinkedIn Live, is your members are coming to your organization for solutions, and your content really needs to reflect, the solutions. What are you helping your members solve? So that needs to be included in your content. So the second N in content is nourish your audience consistently. And that's where the content calendar comes in. And the last, the T in content, the second T stands for test, analyze, and recalibrate. So, you really want to look at your analytics, look at your engagement, and review that on a regular basis. And based on your data, how can you tweak your content to promote better engagement?
Okay, that is wonderful. Having a framework like this is so powerful for us. So I want to take a step back and understand what should be our content goals to begin with. I guess once we have identified the big goals, then we can go back and create the content to meet that goal.
Yeah, right. So I think one of the main goals is what I had addressed earlier, is your content making your members' job easier or their
Mm.
life better, either professionally or personally. But then the other content goal is, in terms of, and it was the story that I was sharing about working, interdepartmentally with other organizations, is knowing what the membership goals are. Because so often I think as content creators and typically those who are working in marketing communications teams, we don't really have an idea of what an association's membership goals are, and how many prospects do we need to bring in to convert them into members. Is it 1 in 10 prospects convert into a member? I didn't know that kind of data early in my career, and I wasn't really really focused on that. So I think it's really critical to know what your association's membership goals are, so you can use your content as a way to help grow your membership.
And I guess we need to understand if you're creating a piece of content, who is this for? Is it for a prospective member? Is it for an existing member? Are we a kind of re-engaging a lapsed member? We have to understand that as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mentioned lead generation content earlier.
Yeah.
So I think, your lead generation content needs to solve a specific problem, for your prospective member. And it can be something as simple as a digital resource,
Mm.
10 tips to solve X, Y, and Z, problem. Or I've seen, and actually I've done this myself, is we've taken a popular webinar and put it on a landing page and promoted it to prospective members for them to, opt in and get a copy of that recording because it was so popular with existing members and it had a lot of value.
Right, right. And I guess like free events are good content are actually good content for prospective members too.
Yeah, events are excellent. And in fact, this is a tactic that I've seen, I've used myself and I've seen other organizations use very successfully is, making a live webinar available to members and non-members, and then offering the recording to members only in a gated, community and a gated area. And that's always a great idea. The problem is what I see happening is that I think we all get so busy that we fail to follow up on those prospects who have signed up for that webinar. And oftentimes
Mm.
they're, sitting in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere and just gathering dust. And so that's why I believe that conversion content in the form of email campaigns, in the form of just actual phone calls, following up with them, or maybe even some direct mail pieces, and really following up with your prospects to convert them
Mm.
into a new member is really important. And that's an area where I see associations, because they are challenged for resources, people, and time, they fail to execute on that. And so, they've got a really great lead in front of them, but they're just not nurturing that lead to take them to the finish line to get them to join.
And I guess one challenge in that is that we find that a lot of associations are not like super great at marketing. Maybe they don't have an
Yeah.
in-house marketing person, or like there isn't a lot of like marketing background in the team. And as a result, like they don't realize that like this is really a marketing game that we're playing, right? So we have to like attract the prospects. Then once we have attracted them, we collected emails. We have to have conversion content, drive conversion, and sign up members.
Right. Because, yes, absolutely. Very few of your prospects, especially since you guys develop websites, you probably know this very well, is when visitors come and prospects come and visit your website, very few of them. I've seen statistics that say about only 7% of them are actually ready to join. The rest of them really need to be nurtured. And, what does your nurturing look like for your association? Oftentimes it's nothing, or, maybe a follow-up email, but you have to, membership is a push product, in that no one wakes up, today and says, oh, I'm going to join XYZ association. You really have to, push the value of your membership and how it can better your career, better your life. And so, and that takes multiple touch points and not just a single touch point.
Okay, right, right. And I guess like that nurturing becomes often difficult for associations because there isn't enough resources or bandwidth in the team. So like, are there ways to kind of like make it easier for them to nurture?
Yeah, and I think this is where you can use technology and the power of automation
Yeah.
to do this effectively. And in fact, I'm a big believer in creating email campaigns and putting them in your AMS platform, and or your email service provider. I think email service providers have come a long way in terms of how easy they've made automation. And if you can, set them up to receive those automatically, that really makes your job so much easier.
Right, right. So just like create an automation with maybe like a series of emails that the tool will send out automatically. And whenever you have new prospects, you just like add them to that list and the tool takes care of the rest.
Exactly. And I recommend at
Right.
least 5 up to even 9 with some, with maybe even a phone call or 2 included in there, to really engage with that prospect.
Right, right. And I guess like if you're having regular events and regular free events for your prospective members, then every single time you have a new free event, you can always like invite the past prospects to come to that one, and you're creating that email anyways. So just like add the other people in the list and you automatically get nurtured content.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So what are the different formats of content that you can tell us about? I know there's a lot, right? But like maybe like just like the top few maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, webinars have always been really popular, and especially after the pandemic, they've grown. I think webinars, also, it, blogs, because, your website is still a really big part of how members, get your content as they visit your website, or even prospects, visit your website to find out more information. So I think your websites, are really popular. I think, YouTube, everyone knows the importance of, video content and how popular it is across all, member segments, generations. So, I think YouTube channels are very popular. Uh, I think also digital newsletters are
Mm.
very, popular as well. So those are some of the ones that come to mind immediately.
Okay. So what is the role of social media in all of this?
Yeah, so I think social media, I personally believe that social media is overrated, in that there's so many different algorithm challenges. So I think it's a good tool, and I think definitely, associations need to use it to push out their content. But I think that you can also use it as an opportunity, maybe to do, some advertising to specific segments, and, target with specific key demographics. If you want to, elevate that a little bit and get in front of, the people you're trying to reach. I'm a big believer in, if you can engage your prospects, and obviously your members are already on your email list. If you can get them, like if you can get prospects to opt in to your mailing list and have conversations, or start conversations with them and engage them through your email list, that's, I think, a much easier way to get in front of your members than social media. But I think it definitely has, it's very relevant, and you need to be on there. It's just, I think email is a more direct connection to your members and prospects.
Thank you so much for that. We see the same in our data that like no matter how much work we do on social media and whatnot, and social media is blowing up, right? But even then, the biggest conversion that we get are from emails. So emails are still strong. They're still very, very powerful.
Yeah, and you just can't beat the ROI,
Yeah.
Farhad. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've seen the stats as well. It just has such a high ROI.
Okay. So when we are creating content, I guess like should we focus on one, or like focus on one more than the other? Say like more video, more blogs, or maybe like more audio.
Yeah, I think it really depends. It goes back to clarifying your audience and what your audience enjoys. And, every association is different. And also in terms of, what your resources and capabilities are.
Mm.
Not every association team has a really great video production department, but there are so many social media tools out there, like Canva, that make, video content creation a little bit easier and more manageable. But I really, I really think that it depends on the organization and what their needs are and where their members are congregating. If they're I haven't seen too many associations on TikTok, but if you have a younger community of members, the case could be made that you do need to have a TikTok presence, kind of thing. So, or if if you've got association data that shows that your members are audio learners, then by all means, I think investing in a podcast is a great strategy for your association.
Right. So we recently went to a conference, and then in that conference, I was surprised to see that like none of the sessions were being recorded, like an in-person conference, no session was being recorded, right? So like it was a bit of a shock to me that like, okay, like this is such good content, but no one is recording it like for repurposing on social or anything else, or even put up in a library, right? So no one was doing that. And then I was talking to people, and then all of a sudden, like so many people listen to our podcast. I was like, oh wow, meaning like that audience has a gap, and we are filling that gap, and that association is not. So
Yeah.
that was like eye-opening for me. So now, so in this day and age, if you really want to engage your like audience, like can we even like not produce videos? Like videos are the thing nowadays, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know HubSpot just recently came out with some statistics, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was just overwhelming, how people are just consuming, content. So you've got to be able to, push out some content. And even if you don't have like a video production team, you can do it through, Instagram Reels. You can do it through Facebook Lives. If you've got Facebook groups, you can go live within the group. That's an easy way to create content, and then you can share that with your members later through your email newsletter, for example. So, I mean, I think there's definitely opportunities out there to do video if you don't have like a video production department.
Yeah, and I guess like one of the simplest ways associations can produce more video, like maybe not long form video, but short form to attract audience in general, is that like if you did have a webinar like this one, just record it and then like have a little clip for promotion later on, right? For other events.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And also, and we talked about this a little bit during the LinkedIn Live. I'm a big believer in member generated content. And I've actually seen success with members who have done little clips or recordings, whether it was, just a testimonial for why, you should attend your association annual conference and what they got out of, last year's conference and why you need to go. So I think because today's smartphone technology is really remarkable. So, use what you have and
Right.
and engage your members that way and ask them.
Okay, let's talk about this a little more. What is member generated content?
So this is content that, exactly what it says is it's generated by your members, where you involve your members in creating a piece of content, whether that's a testimonial for why they need to join, whether that's, sharing, some problem maybe that they encountered and how they solved it. I've seen like
Right.
Facebook groups, use that effectively. I think it helps if you have people who are in your association who are influencers, who are industry leaders, and who have a following, and they're not afraid. Perhaps they've been creating content for their own business or company, and they're not afraid of getting in front of the camera, and use those people to, with their video production skills, to create some content for you as well. Don't be shy about asking. That's the thing, is especially for those organizations who are listening to this and they're like, oh, we have such limited resources. Well, that means you just have to get more creative, and you have to just, get smarter, and just, you use the people who are in your community who have had success with that, and don't be shy about asking them. And sometimes, Farhad, you can help them by giving them a script, right? Or even just a few key talking points. And so then they're on point, with your messaging, and everything is consistent. So, don't be shy about asking your members.
And I guess harness the collective intelligence that you have within your membership, right? So for example, for our podcast itself here, for example, we invite guests on a wide variety of topics. Like Leona, we invited you because we know that you are the king of content or queen of content, right? So we always find, okay, what are the different gaps in our content right now? What have we not covered before? And then we go out and find people. So I think you can do something very similar within your membership to see what is the gap, and who are the people who can fill the gap.
Absolutely. And I think if your membership is thriving and it's growing, you need to be, as a content creator, you've always, and that's why I believe in the importance of listening and engaging or listening in your online communities, especially, is really finding out what are your members talking about? What are the questions that they're asking over and over again? What are some keywords that get searched in your online communities? And tapping into the people who are showing up with regular answers, and asking them to consider doing a webinar for your association, or even leading a panel discussion at your annual conference.
Right.
I mean, I think there's so many opportunities, and I think, again, you just have to be on the lookout for those people who are helping answer questions, and they're really engaged in your content platforms.
So what I'm hearing is that we shouldn't take all of it upon ourselves to create the content, but instead use the team around us, use the people, use the membership overall, and get help from everyone.
Yeah. And also, don't forget to reach out to your staff within your organization as well. Your association CEO, they can chime in with pieces of content, or a vlog, or maybe they travel to an industry conference and they share some key takeaways from that conference that would be valuable to your members. Or people love behind the scenes types of stories. So have fun and tell the story of your association and its members. For a trade organization that I worked for, they did these Friday shop tours, and they just gave one of their staff members their smartphone, and they just walked their audience through the shop. And it was so fascinating, and people were so engaged because they really want to see how the sausage is made, so to speak, and they really want that behind the scenes look. So get creative.
Yeah, and I guess having fun in the process of creating content is so important. I want to share a quick story, from I think 3 or 4 years ago when we started our content journey, right? So I was talking to one of my mentors, and they were like, you know what, you guys know so much, but all this knowledge is trapped in your heads. Why don't you unleash it, so share it with the world? I'm like, how do I share? Do webinars. Do it, right? So, okay, fine. So I told him, you know what, I'm not very popular in the community. If I do a webinar, no one will come to my webinar. No one will even show up. They're like, okay, so how many people do you want on your webinar? I said 100. And they were like, oh, you'll probably not get 100. You'll probably get 10 on the first one. Will you be okay with that? I'm like, yeah, probably, right? What about if you got one? Will you still do the webinar? I'm like, yes, I'll still do the webinar. I want that one person to attend. And then he was like, okay, then just go and do it. Do the first one, see how it goes. Oh my God, the very first webinar we announced, we had 20, 30 people, right? So And then like the first one was so popular. I'm like, oh my God, like people actually want this and I know stuff I should share, right? So I
Right.
think doing the first one built up so much confidence. And then after
It
that,
does.
it's like a rabbit hole from there, right? We just like went on and on and on.
Yeah, yeah. And I commend all of you guys because I know how hard it is to produce content and to do it consistently. I think that's what distinguishes, mediocre organizations from ones that really excel in their field is, you do it consistently.
Now, so on the point of like having fun, so one thing I find that I truly believe in right now is that like if a piece of content I'm producing is not fun for me, I will not even like talk about it, right? So like I myself, I'm like big on strategy, association membership, engagement, attraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all the content is around that, and this is something that I enjoy, I love. So as a result, like doing this podcast, creating our webinar, it's like so much fun for me, and
Yeah.
like I think it's a matter of like combining the different skills you have in your team, like whoever is good at what. For example, like our team member like Anika, who's like behind the scenes here, the event producer,
Yeah.
she loves editing videos, she loves producing, like organizing these events, right? So her talent plus like me being on the camera, I think it's like a great like combination for us to kind of like be out there.
Yeah. I mean, I can't agree more. I think you have to really tap into your team members, and sometimes sometimes your team members may be a little shy or maybe out of their comfort zone, but after you've done it a few times, you get a little bit more comfortable. And but yeah, I think knowing the skill set of your team and even challenging some of your team members to get out of their box helps.
Right. Okay. So we got a question from Michelle Santiago, and I think this is a very important question. So that's why I'm asking it early. So what would be your processes of creating content, like day to day? What would you do?
Yeah, so I like to think of content and in kind of a year-round cycle. So because that's how membership is comprised, you join at one point of the year and then you renew at the end of the year, kind of thing. So on a daily basis, I recommend including like tips, small tips, inspirational quotes, something that you can, just small things that you can put in front of your members on a daily basis, like for social media. On a weekly basis, it can be something like an targeted email campaign or some type of digital resource. On a monthly basis, it could be like a monthly newsletter with just really relevant content. And I'm not talking about the newsletters that are just pieces of just uh, just fluff. They're news. You want your content to make your members' job easier or make their life better. So you've got to ask yourself, every piece of content needs to do that. So monthly newsletter. On a quarterly basis, it could be like a workshop or a webinar or some kind of conference. And then on an annual basis, it could be, most associations have some kind of annual conference. But I think the important thing is whatever it is for your organization, you really need to think of content on how can we push out, content on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. So then you hit them year round. So then when their membership renewal comes up, you have been touching them all year with relevant and helpful and compelling content, hopefully.
And I guess the content calendar is very important for that, because like unless you have a content calendar, you don't know in your mind like what is coming up 2 weeks from now that you have to start working on today. So I think anything you're publishing 2 weeks from now, you have to start working on it now, right? So we have to have the calendar.
Yeah, you do have to have a calendar. And I was actually talking to someone who earlier this week, who is with Restaurant Facility Management Association. And she was telling me that they work on their content calendar a year in advance because it
Wow.
involves so many departments across so many departments within the organization. And so she is actually she's in the membership department. She actually maintains that calendar, but they've got to do it a year in advance because it does take a lot of planning. And also they're being very they're creating some highly relevant, engaging content, and that takes time. I remember when I talked to one of your team members about this topic, and that was back in the spring, and now here we
Yes.
are like 4 or 5 months later, and we're actually doing this podcast. So that's I think a content calendar is critical. If you don't organize, you do agonize, and it makes it stressful for your team, especially if you're trying to plan things in advance and you're not meeting your deadlines and you're not publishing your content consistently. It's just it can be really challenging.
Right. And I guess having an online community of your members is very important as well. Like hence our product Member Lounge, right? So this is an online
Mm-hmm.
community for your members. So
Mm-hmm.
having that community, I think, is like very powerful because like we have to make sure that like we are not just like sending emails all the time. Like there is another community,
Yeah.
closed community behind like closed doors where your members come together and then you share content there as well. So can you like share your thoughts on your online community for members?
Yeah, I think every association, if they have an online community through like their AMS platform, they need to include their online community in their content calendar. In fact, I've seen we were talking during the LinkedIn Live last week about how associations today can't operate with their content like they did like 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
I think online communities is definitely an area where you need to treat that as a regular content vehicle and include it in your content calendar. Some of the more successful associations that I see, they're very intentional about what those topics are. I think oftentimes, especially if it's, a listserv type of online community, sometimes the content can just produce itself, and it can
Yeah.
grow organically with the topics. But I think, especially if you're trying to deliver value and you've got a very active online community, the association needs to be very intentional and include, those content topics in the calendar.
Okay. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I will add that this is an area, Farhad, because people are maybe going, oh great, another another thing to do is add online communities to the content calendar. This is an area where I think you can enlist your members in maybe your committee chairs or people who are very engaged in your organization, and ask them if they would help to populate content topics in your online communities, because I found that the strongest online communities, it's through member generated content. And members, they're they know what it's like because they've got the boots on the ground, and they can answer those questions that I wouldn't even try to answer as a content creator, because I'm not one of them. But your members can definitely, you can tap into their knowledge and expertise.
Let's say having the online community is very important, right? So
Mhm.
besides that, what other tools do we need, like for regularly creating content? What would you use?
Yeah, so I think, I've talked a little bit about just video production.
Yeah.
and having, the right tools to create video content, and even just having, the right editing software, and just having the right equipment with video production. That's definitely something. And I think also, I mentioned Canva earlier. I think Canva and other graphic design, online graphic design services like that, like PicMonkey, they make it easy to share content across teams and, collaborate that way. So it's not just one person, creating things or editing things or proofing things before you push them out, or scheduling things, So I would recommend just, all the tools that are involved with video production.
Got it. Yeah. Now, one thing that we find is that like whenever we're trying to create content, like we need to get some intellectual stimulation from somewhere. And I'll tell you like where like we get ours from. So we get our intellectual stimulation from wonderful guests like you. So you came to our podcast, you're talking about this topic, and then after this episode, like I'll kind of like think on various different tangents from here, and we'll produce like many more content related to this, right? So bringing in external like guests is one way for us. The second way that we get stimulation is like from our audience questions. So for example, as part of like this webinar, we ask people to submit their questions online, and like we have been asking these questions for so long. We have a bank of thousands and thousands and thousands of audience questions. Now when we try to like pick a topic to talk about on a video, I just like pick one from there, right? We are trying to be like more strategic about it, that like, okay, so how can we not just randomly create videos from those topics, but like be more strategic, and like what do more people want, what will rank better, what will actually like have better engagement. So like where do you think associations can get similar ideas?
Yeah, I think see what your competitors are doing. And
Yes.
I mean, obviously, you don't want to steal their ideas, but I think you can, I think you can use them in a way, in tweak them for your own membership. So see what your competitors are doing. What are some popular brands, that you follow? What are they doing? Look to your inbox. And actually, I'll give you an example of this. Is I got a video in my mailbox just today, and it was about a community giving day. And for one of my clients that I support, they were actually focused on building a campaign for National Giving Day, which is in November. And but the video that I saw, it was showing how your dollars are being used in the community, and it had a video of the executive director of this particular organization, and she had a big truck behind her who was like digging up dirt, and they were actually breaking ground on a new building because of people's donations. And it was just a great scene, and she was telling a story with that, and also reminding people, hey, it's our community giving day, please make sure you give and help support what our efforts, and here's what's coming up this fall. So I think just looking to your inbox, I know I get a lot of inspiration and ideas that way. So those are a few of the ways that I would recommend. And I know I mentioned earlier about the chats, on your webinar or your online meetings. And I think that's definitely an untapped resource, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at your competitors is actually a great way to understand like what others are doing. And so we have a term for that. We call it like doing R&D on your competitors. So R&D means rob and duplicate. So do not shy away from robbing and duplicating your competitors' content.
Yeah.
So on that note, like I have had this dilemma often that if I want to write on a certain topic, but there are like many other blogs on that topic already, like published. If I Google search, I'll actually find many of them. Should I still write about that topic?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I would encourage you to come at it with, a different angle. And, Neil Patel actually talks about this. And if you go to his website, or he's got a great content on YouTube as well. He actually has great resources about keyword searches and how to differentiate your content on a popular topic. How to publish it in a way, or how to use different keyword searches to differentiate your content. He also talked recently in a video I saw about just updating your existing content on your website, and Google will recognize that as new content. So, that's a way to go. But I'm not an expert in this area, but I will refer people to Neil Patel. He's got some great resources, and I always learn a lot about that.
Yeah, and refreshing your old content and repurposing them in new ways is actually a great source of content by itself. Like, I see too many people don't do it, but we are regular about it. We look at our old blogs, we refresh them, we repurpose them, we hit edit and update the dates, right? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, say we are being regular on creating content. Say we have videos or we have like blogs, right? So, what are the best ways to share that with the audience? Like, how would you like broadcast it?
Yeah. So, beyond like the traditional channels, because, we've talked quite a bit about just the value of email marketing and the ROI. I think texting is a great way to push out content and not have it get lost in a user's inbox. If you have a mobile app for your organization, doing a push notification is a really great way to do that. Also, on your website, you can have a pop-up box, on your website. Check out, our new piece of content, XYZ. You can have banner ads on your website as well, or you can rotate ads on your website. That's a great way to promote content. Also, I think using your other content vehicles to announce, other pieces of content. For instance, like, on your podcast, Farhad, you can, invite people to your LinkedIn Live event, or a future webinar, or just using your other content vehicles as a way to promote across the board your other content opportunities that you have. So, for instance, on your webinar, you could promote your podcast and make sure, and encourage people, because your webinar listeners may not be aware of your podcast. I'm not saying specifically, the Grype podcast, but for an association, that's why it's so important to have different content vehicles, for different, some members are going to be podcast listeners, other members are going to be your webinar watchers. So that's just a way to cross promote your pieces of content.
Okay. I can tell you, Leona, I'm making this the highlight of this episode, this part, this clip.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
And I'll do it myself. We have another amazing podcast coming up in 2 weeks with Jeff Horn about technologies and technology ecosystems. So if you're watching this, you'll get a lot more value there as well. So do come by. It's in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. I will.
All right. Okay. So now I'm going to jump onto the audience questions. We have so many questions. Let's see if we can cover some good ones there.
Yeah.
So the first question is from Brad Sapp, and I think we answered some of this already. So what do most associations struggle with when deciding how to convey content?
So I think in terms of how to convey it, for me, I think that the struggle is knowing who your audience is for that piece of content, and really getting specific on your member segment. for that piece of content.
Okay. So understanding the member segment. All right.
Yeah.
The next question is from Viola Heber. So Viola is asking, what are some membership recruitment campaigns to attract members and also to raise revenue for the association?
So this is what I've seen that's worked for other associations is, for instance, if your association has some kind of industry recognition program, whether it's, some kind of contest, and oftentimes when you are to be a part of that contest and you're submitting entries for that contest, there's a fee. And that's a great way to generate revenue. So if it's an established industry program or contest, then it's going to attract people from your entire industry. So having a targeted membership campaign to non-members and inviting them to, get recognition and be a part of this contest, I think is one way to do that.
Right. And I guess like in terms of like raising revenue, so another like way I'm thinking is upselling your current members. So if you have like a resource library and some resources most resources are free, and along with that, if you have like paid resources that are like very high quality content, like maybe a good training or like something else, like, well, we have paid resources within our app as well. Like if you want to like look at Member Lounge, so paid resources are actually a great way of upselling your current membership at the same time.
Yeah, and if you have the sophisticated platform to do that, I think that's an excellent way to do that.
Okay, so next question is from Sherry Lippincott. Sherry asked a very good question. How does this content creation change when it's not about making money?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think that you can just really focus in on member problems, and just the quantity of your content. I think that when it's not about, making money, because I think that you get so fixated on, trying to draw prospects to your organization and trying to convert them and trying to retain them, that it can be a mental block sometimes. And so I think if money was no object, I think you would be a little bit more freer to create, more content and varied content. Perhaps, I don't know. Farhad, do you have any suggestions with that?
Yeah, like what you said, I think this is more liberating. This is liberating that like money is not a problem. We don't have to like worry about like one specific goal. I think like when that happens, I guess like we can look at like what are the different awarenesses we want to like raise in the community in our profession, right? And also like if you're trying to do advocacy, in our advocacy efforts, if we have like 4 or 5 different advocacy like areas that we are working on actively, how can we generate more awareness in those? And I guess like when we're doing advocacy, there are like different levels of like governments you want to like do this with. So this is like municipal, like federal, like state, or so all the different levels. So I think like you have to make sure that if it's not about making money, like are you making the right stakeholders aware of what is the work that you're doing, or the cause that you're working on is so important, like who needs to know about this? So I think like not having to make money is liberating. It's not limiting at all. Like it gives you more options in general.
Yeah, and I think it gives you more freedom, to tell more member stories. And like you were saying, like, at the state level and the national level, when it comes to like advocacy, I mean, there's so many opportunities there for a trade association that I worked for many years. They did an excellent job of advocacy, but I felt like in some ways, because money, was limited, we weren't able to tap into the power of telling our story and how active our members were in, getting legislation passed. And sometimes, that's stifling. So if money were no object, I think you can tell richer member stories and more of them.
Right. Okay. So the next question, we partly answered this question already, but this is so important. I want to reiterate this. So Katie Cairns asking effectiveness of member videos, testimonials, photos to help drive member retention.
Yeah, we did talk about just the importance of videos, and I just think that my suggestion here is to make your video testimonials especially more effective. I think it's great anytime you can have a video testimonial, because oftentimes, associations will publish a written testimonial, but if you can get a video one, that's great. And they talk about, the value, or, how it's enhanced their career or made their life better. That's great. But then if you can actually get your member to tell a story, and I'll go back to the advocacy example, is don't just tell them, oh, this made a difference. Actually show them through your testimonial and describe how it changed your life or how it changed your business, and actually tell a story. And stories, as we all know, are so powerful, and our brains just connect with stories. And so if you want to be more effective with your testimonials, actually tell a story. Or even if it's a written testimonial, talk about just the problem solution aspect, and really draw that out in your testimonial.
Yeah, and on that note, we record a lot of client stories in general. We do professional shoots for those with clients, and we follow something called a hero's journey, and it's
Yes.
a very simple thing. A hero's journey is very simple. So the client or your member who's doing the video is the hero, right? What is the problem that person was having? Start with the problem. I was having this problem. Working with this association, solve this problem in this way, and then explain how. Right.
Yep.
So the problem, the solution, and how she got there. So this is the hero's journey, and this is super effective.
It is. I think it's building a story brand, right? By Donald
Exactly.
Miller. Yeah.
Yes. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So next question is from Michelle Osejo. So Michelle is asking, is there a secret ratio to gated versus non-gated content?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think it's dependent on every association. What I like to advise associations is to look at your existing content and categorize it in 3 ways, from good, better, and best, and see if you can take your content and put them in those 3 categories. And so if you're giving away your best content in an ungated, area of your website or your community, then you're not really giving your members a reason to join. So that would be my first suggestion. Is look at your content, and if it falls in those categories, and maybe elevate the content, that is your best content, and put that in the gated area. I think associations, just because, again, I think we get busy, and we don't sit down and really do maybe a content audit and say, okay, what really has value, and maybe do put that in the gated community. But I don't think we stop often enough and do that assessment. So I think you have to be really strategic in how you win over those prospects, and get them converted into new members. And if you're giving away all of your best content for free, then why should they join? You don't really give them a reason to join.
Exactly. And what I find is that I think we should give away some high quality content, but only
Absolutely.
a few though, one or two, not all, one or two, your highest content, so that like people see that content and they're like their eyes are just like glazing, like, oh my god, what did I just see, right? So if this is what I can get by not becoming a, but without even being a member, what will I see behind the closed doors?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this challenge some associations because sometimes they don't necessarily have a sophisticated enough platform to, have like the gated and ungated community and trying to differentiate between that and trying to set that up. So I know that is a challenge.
Right. Okay. So the next question is from Catherine Dolan. Again, very good question. She's saying, I would like to know who manages the content in other organizations. Is it marketing? Is it membership? Is it website team?
I think my experience has been that typically marketing and communications teams have managed it. I know the example that I gave earlier with the person who I was talking to with the Restaurant Facility Management Association, she actually works in their membership department. So I think my experience has been typically marketing communications teams manage it, but it can be different things for, different organizations. So Farhad, if you have any insights to share there, feel free, but that's been my experience.
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to be paranoid about this, like, so never give your web team, the reins on content, they will fail you most of the time. Give it to marketing,
Yeah.
give it to marketing and membership. And I think like one problem here as well is that if your website is set up in such a way that like when your marketing team is producing content, they cannot publish anything without the help of the web team, that's a failure right there, right? So you need to
Yeah.
empower your marketing team to kind of like take a piece of content and create, publish, promote all by themselves
Yes.
without getting any help from technical, like zero help from technical, right? If your
Yes.
website is not set up that way, then you need to fix that problem first.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point, Farhad.
Right.
Very good point.
Yep. Ready? So next question, again, another very good one. So Gina Borgman, she's asking, what are some low-hanging fruits to demonstrate value through content for retention purposes?
So low-hanging fruit. I think that, again, look at your existing content that you're offering to your members and see, and this is the T part in my content acronym is test, analyze, and recalibrate, is look at your analytics and see what is really popular with your members and see, like, are there particular webinars or videos that are really creating great engagement. And also you can see if you've got a good platform, you can see who is engaged and who is opening, or seeing those videos or opening your emails, and maybe do a campaign to those members who may have not opened that email yet, or maybe do like a resend to to that segment who hasn't opened it. And usually it, my personal experience has been when you do resend it to them with like a subject line of reminder, you actually do increase your open rate and your click-through rate. People just get busy and they may not have seen it the first time. So maybe doing like a resend campaign of a popular piece of content that your members are engaging with it is a low-hanging type of fruit that you can, really get some value in front of those members who haven't maybe seen it.
Yeah, I think like people are very afraid to resend same emails, resend the same tweets, republish the same like LinkedIn messages. But like, we get so many emails, so many social posts nowadays that like that one post you made is lost now, is lost. So if you even like send the same content 3 times, no one will complain. Like we have reshared, reposted so many things in our at our company. Not once, like thousands and thousands of emails. We haven't heard like one complaint saying, hey, I saw it last week. Why are you sharing it again? We have
Yeah.
never heard that.
Well, and when I see the word reminder, there's just something that goes off in my head like, oh no, what did I miss? You know, and so it just engages me right away, grabs my attention right away. Our members are so busy. It's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to just go through your inbox and like, you know, hit delete and accidentally, you know, delete something. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Alrighty. So I think like we will wrap up with that. Now, do we have any questions on YouTube Live, Anika? If so, if you don't mind like sending them on chat, that'll be great. Okay. So before we get to that, do we actually like have any key takeaways, like Leona, for the audience? Like, what would be your top takeaways?
Yeah, so I think my top takeaway is, and actually it's going to be a challenge, is in what I've talked about earlier about just clarifying your audience. That is so key. Knowing who your audience, knowing who your members are. The member of yesterday is not the member of today. They've changed. So having you know, regular conversations with them, whether you know, just reaching out to one or two of your members and connecting with them with either a phone chat or, you know, video conference call, and just asking them, you know, how are things going? You know, what's a recent win that you had? Or, you know, if they're a manager of a team, like, you know, what is a problem that your team is struggling with right now? Because chances are, you know, what they share is probably going to be relevant to your other members, and you can, not only do you get to know them better and you understand them better, but you're probably going to walk away with an idea for a content topic.
Yeah.
You know, so I always like to, you know, start that way. Again, as content creators, I think we get, you know, we get so focused on, you know, meeting our deadlines and staying in our offices and just not getting out and engaging with our members enough, not getting out of the office really and visiting your members in their offices, you know, where they work. That is always so eye-opening, and a great way to create some new content is you could do a video easily that way. So just engaging with your members, one or two of your members, would be my challenge and my key takeaway to get to know them better.
Absolutely. And I guess like making it a habit, like talking to members regularly every month, like it's a muscle. The first few calls will be very difficult, but like once you've done a few, you know, it'll be much, much easier for you.
Yeah, and you'll look forward to it too.
Yeah.
You know, because you really learn a lot, and you know, and I don't know, it develops a connection with your members, and you see them as people and not just, you know, a member, and you look forward to those conversations.
Alrighty. Leona, thank you so much for joining us today. How can people reach out to you if they have any more questions after?
So, you know, the best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn, Leona Delavai Scott. They can, you know, ping me that way. Or if they wanted to go to my website, it's profitablecontentmenu.com, and you can reach me that way as well.
Wonderful. Leona, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Farhad.
Alrighty, so that was the episode with Leona Scott today. We got so many gold nuggets in this episode. I'm pretty sure I'm going to rewatch this myself to see like what have I missed while I was like immersed in the podcast itself. And once again, I guess like when we come to events, we often get a lot of ideas. Like we get a flood of ideas and we can't usually implement all of them. So I invite you all to kind of like find like one or two or three top ideas that you can maybe like start working on immediately. And like if there's one, you like the key takeaway, I would say like start talking to your members more, like talking to your members more, right? And then like that'll actually give you lots of ideas for creating new content. With that, we will wrap up for today. And once again, like we actually have a lot of events every month. We have another wonderful podcast coming up in 2 weeks with Jeff Horn. So if you don't know Jeff, he's the founder and CEO of Wicket, one of the like top platforms for member data. So yeah, so do sign up. It's in 2 weeks. With that, I think like we wish you all the best with your membership journey, and we will wrap up. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.